Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Grizzaffi, and I'm here to talk about bad spins and not ignoring your automation ecosystem. So, I am a principal automation architect at Cognizant Soft Vision, and I've spent my career focused on automation. I am an advisor to a couple of organizations. And in the interest of time, let's jump right in. What is the automation ecosystem? Well, the automation ecosystem needs to be the basis of our automation tool selection decision process, and it's made up of three parts. The first part is the strategy. The strategy is why you want to automate. What is this going to bring to the table for you? What value is automation going to provide? Not just from a testing standpoint and even from a software delivery standpoint, but from a corporate goal standpoint and an organizational goal standpoint, a business goal. What is this going to bring to the table that's going to help fulfill those goals, to help achieve those goals? And once you've decided the why, then you can decide the how. How are we going to approach this automation endeavor such that we meet those business goals? The second facet is the audience, and the audience is those people who will be interacting with the automation directly and indirectly. Directly being those who are creating and executing the automation, and indirectly those who are interested in it from perhaps a budgetary or compliance standpoint. And the third is the environment. This is what you're going to test. It's the, do I have a mobile app? Do I have a web app? Do I have some sort of device that's going to go into a human body from a medical standpoint? These are the three aspects we need to keep in mind uh, when we make decisions about automation and test tool selection. So I was in an organization once where these were not taken into account. Decisions were made largely in a vacuum based on some ideals, and let's just walk through and see what the situation wound up being. So, for a bad spin on strategy, well, there was no stated problem or goal with respect to testing or business impact. It wasn't even a testing goal, if you will. It was, we're going to do BDD. And Paul, come in and help us do BDD. There was no alignment with organizational or corporate goals around competition or income or bottom line or top line. Nothing. It was automate because that's what we're supposed to do. And a lot of it was automation based on process because, well, we do Scrum, so we automate. And the other direction was to build on open source, so they immediately discounted any vendor supplied tools. So they didn't understand their audience very well either. In fact, their audience wasn't really determined. They said basically, okay, here's what the teams are going to do it, but they weren't really looking for the teams to take ownership and run with it. I was brought in as a change agent, but the test team was skeptical, and there were no friendlies. I had nobody I could conspire with to help build a plan on how to get acceptance for what I was being asked to do. The developers were not receptive to this approach at all, and they were not even receptive to making the code more automatable. The business representatives paid some lip service to what was going on, but they were not really receptive to the perceived and actual slowdown that it was going to take for adding these additional steps and this additional work on a per sprint basis. And leadership wasn't really ready when it came down to hard calls about what the focus of the work was going to be. They relied and they fell back on what they were comfortable with and what they knew, which was the old way, the previous way. And then on the environment, there was a bit of a bad spin there as well. Uh, the product itself was a thick client with back-end servers, databases, etc. The automation was greenfield, at least with respect to the BDD tools. So that was kind of nice. I didn't have anything I had to continue on with, but the products were not easily automatable, and like I said, the developers were not interested in making them more automatable. And we had inconsistent access to the pre-production environment, your test environment, your integration environment, and other things. And eventually, there were competing tool initiatives across the Scrum teams because there were different philosophies, and the whole thing was not socialized in a digestible way with the larger audience. So, how did it turn out? As you can expect, not very well. There was no uptake for BDD largely across any of the Scrum teams. We wound up with no appreciable feature level automation on a feature by feature basis. We did wind up with a limited automation assist application that really cut down some of the effort that some of the testers were having to expend on a release by release basis. So this part was really good, but and I'm proud of that. But I always feel disappointed that we couldn't make more headway. And had we taken the ecosystem into account, I think we could have made more headway in a broader scope. So what could we have done instead? Well, we could have started with a broad assessment of our ecosystem. Even before I got there, the leadership that was there could have done a broad assessment of the ecosystem, put together some business goals that they were going to try to have automation leverage against. And again, play with the open source tools. There's nothing wrong with taking and prototyping. And when I say prototype against your app. Prototyping against toy apps is awesome, and you can learn things from that. But you know where the really nasty bits of your application are going to be, and you're going to want to make sure that the tool can interact with those, or if it can't, that you're okay with it being limited in that respect. And then once you prototype, you assess. Do we need to reprototype? Do we need to prototype with something else? And work with the free trial tools. Work with vendors as well. They may have something that is more appropriate and winds up being sort of cost neutral or even cost beneficial than having to develop and work with open source yourself. Don't limit yourself to one or the other, and you're going to have a much better time soaking in and understanding your ecosystem so that you can make a good, valuable, and responsible decision with respect to automation tool selection. And thank you so much for your time.